making sure your kids stay keen. Let's turn the vibe up high. Just press play. Light up the airwaves, fire in the code we see. Personality in every story that we'll weave. Groove is on the beat, it's tight, we're live today. Talking apps, gadgets that light up the way. That's entertaining, oh let it play. Seamless chatter, like threads in digital tapestry. Icons and notions of this tech odyssey. That's entertaining, it's all in play. Now tune in close, the stories will unfurl. Chatting trends and news, it's a digital swirl. Let us turn the vibe up high, just press play. It's a feast of thoughts where the listeners stay. This is where the lights align. It's kinetic, sync with the pulse. Your go-to tech aesthetic. Let us turn the vibe up high. Just press play. Tech events, we talk the scene. Making sure your ears stay keen. Let's turn the vibe up high. Just press play. Light up the airwaves, fire in the code we see. Personality in every story that we'll weave. Groove is on the beat, it's tight, we're live today. Talking apps, gadgets that light up the way. That's entertaining, oh let it play. Seamless chatter, like threads in digital tapestry. Icons and notions of this tech odyssey. That's entertaining, it's all in play. Now tune in close, the stories will unfurl. Chatting trends and news, it's a digital swirl. Let us turn the vibe up high, just press play. It's a feast of thoughts where the listeners stay. This is where the lights align. It's kinetic, sync with the pulse. Your go-to tech aesthetic. Let us turn the vibe up high. Just press play.
Hello and welcome to That's Entertaining, the show where events, entertainment, and technology collide. My name is Arthur Kay. I am your host, and I'm coming to you live from Fusion Events headquarters in Toronto, Canada. And we are streaming today live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So to all those who are tuning in live, a big hello and welcome. Now is a great time to jump over to the comments section and say hello so I know that you are watching. And for those who are tuning in after the fact on Spotify or one of the other podcasting platforms, welcome. So good to have you. It is going to be a great show today. On the docket, we are going to, as always, look at some unique and interesting entertainment, event, tech, and stuff, really. And there's a couple big events that have happened recently that I think are worth talking about. One of them is the Canva Create, and the other is Google I/O. So we're going to take a dive into those and look at those and have a discussion about some of the strategies and entertainment that they're using, and what do we think about it. And I also have a great guest on the show today, someone I've known for a very, very long time, Dave Keystone, who is really a pioneer of a reality television to a television host of his own to a TV producer, and has gotten into fundraising and being an auctioneer. So I'm excited to, first of all, catch up with him because I haven't seen him in many years, but also to learn about his career and see what he's doing in the fundraising world. So I am excited to get into that conversation. I see some people tuning in. Big hello to Asma Zobeen, Living Design Decor, welcome. Mel Kuipers, Hotel X, Toronto, welcome. And Meg Trevetti. Hey, Meg, thanks for tuning in. An old client of mine, so thanks for joining in. So let's get into the show. Okay, so we're going to talk some cool entertainment, and I have to shout out Sandy Hammer, who is one of the co-founders of All Seated, who sent this to me because her son worked on this project, and I think it's a really interesting use of entertainment, tech, and it is a amazing, really cool marketing activation. So let's take a look at this. So this is called Magic Box, and it is bringing the LED volume, which is, for those of you who don't know, an LED volume is a stage, an LED stage, essentially, that you shoot. Instead of using a green screen, you use actual LED panels and have the content, your background, essentially, on the LED walls, and actors can be in the environment without having to be in a green screen and imagine what the background looks like. So they can actually immerse themselves in the environment. So this idea is taking the LED volume and putting it into a truck and being able to move it around and bring it to different places for different activations, and allows regular people to step into the world of making a film, and then also at the same time creating some really, really cool user-generated content. So let's take a look.
The Magic Box Super Studio was designed to deliver virtual production almost anywhere. As a new solution, we needed a blockbuster project to put us on the map and show the world what Magic Box could do. Like they were on cue, Netflix, the world's largest content producer, came to us with a project that would take us to the moon. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, to be specific. To celebrate the release of this science fantasy epic, the streaming giant wanted to give Zack Snyder fans a first-hand taste of the Rebel Moon universe. The plan was to turn the audience into movie stars by putting them in their own custom Rebel Moon movie trailer. And with that, the Rebel Moon interactive fan trailer was born. We collaborated with Eyeline Studios at Netflix to build a scene from Rebel Moon on our LED walls. Then we worked with props and other movie elements to blend the scene on the walls with the real world set inside Magic Box. Next, the production crew arrived to set up the lights and cameras. With the interior ready for action, it was time to send Magic Box into wardrobe. Rebel Moon graphics were applied to the Super Studio's outer shell to give it the Hollywood blockbuster look. Next, hair and makeup, wardrobe, and prop stations were set up to prepare our guests for their big...
So this is a really cool use of technology to really immerse attendees into an experience. And this would be something really unique for people who've never experienced anything like this, from getting dressed up in the costumes, the hair and makeup, to actually stepping onto the volume and then getting a piece of content after the fact that looks like a Hollywood movie. Really cool.
Were just the beginning. The grand finale would be our return to Hollywood for the roadshow's climax, the global premiere of Rebel Moon at the legendary Chinese Theater. We parked Magic Box in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard, right at the heart of the star-studded red carpet event. The response to the Rebel Moon Roadshow was tremendous. The campaign generated thousands of social media posts and millions of views. After just a few days, it was clear the rebellion had officially begun. It's time to think inside.
So that is Magic Box. So I think that's a really neat activation. I'm sure that's not a inexpensive activation to pull off, but for a Hollywood movie premiere or a television premiere like this, I think this is a pretty brilliant use of the technology, and it's pretty unique and innovative. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about that, if that's an activation that you would find entertaining or that you would like to participate in. Now let's move on to some event news. So a lot of talk online on LinkedIn about the recent Canva Create event, where they announce new products, etc. And the talk is that it was a very cringe-worthy entertainment piece that they put in there. So why don't let's take a look. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it yet. Let's take a look, and then we'll discuss this.
YouTube Theater! How you feeling? Canva Create, we've talked about a lot. Can we just take a minute to recap? Let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. You can redesign your work, Canva got that glow up. We redesign everything from the flow up. Customize your workspace and make it your own. Ooh, now you making magic when you up in the zone.
What's up, sir? Yes, I'm talking to all of you up there.
Did you invite?
You guys know what's happening? All right. Excuse me. But what about me?
Who is you?
A CIO from an enterprise, see, and I have some doubts.
Security!
That's right, and I'd like to have some certainty.
Certainty.
Nice that you got some pretty shiny things, but can you meet the demands of a global...
So tell me in the comments, level 1 to 10, how cringe do you think this is?
So you think Canva can't go deep, but we can see that your team's actually...
So that's it. I just took a little. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. So yeah, that's it. I mean, it's there's nothing really innovative or any crazy use of technology here. But I think for the audience, and I think probably a majority of people who are using Canva in the workplace, who this is really targeted towards, are probably Gen Z. And, they grew up on like Glee and, remember when flash mobs were such a big thing, and at bar mitzvahs, everyone would be doing a flash mob or some type of, this really reminds me of sort of like a bar mitzvah performance, or back in the maybe early 2000s when the flash mobs were a big deal. But so I think for the crowd in attendance, I think this is actually a throwback, and they would appreciate that. To people older, and maybe even people younger, it might be a little out of left field. But so, entertainment value, I give it like a solid 6.5. And cringe factor, I don't know. It's if you understand what they're doing, which is just campy, fun. This is nothing revolutionary here. But I think it probably does speak to the Gen Z audience. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Did you find it to be a cringe-worthy performance, or was it okay? But overall, the Canva Create is any event they do is always exciting and interesting, and it's a very young company. So I think it was on brand for what they did. So now I want to talk about the Google I/O event, which is Google's developer conference, and I can say from firsthand experience that, having done several events for Google, that they are really risk takers when it comes to entertainment at events. The few things that I've done with Google were all very challenging and very, innovative. And so not surprised that Google's, doing something really cool. And this is sort of hate to say it, but a sort of told you so moment, because if you go back maybe a couple episodes, maybe 2 episodes or 3 episodes ago, I talked about looping artists and beatboxers and how interesting it would be to have a looping artist at a keynote doing, opening and warming up the crowd for a keynote. And I showed some different examples, and lo and behold, a couple weeks later, here we are, and here's Google I/O, and they've got the preeminent looping artist who's doing this opening for them. And it's risky for a couple reasons, because first of all, this artist, his name is Marc Rebillet. If you've never seen him, go check him out on YouTube. He is absolutely wild and slightly unhinged. He often performs in his underwear, maybe with a robe on, and he loops himself. He's a great musician. He plays keys and he sings, and he just does ridiculous songs. He'll go out into the street in New York City, and he'll get huge crowds. And a lot of his stuff is NSFW, not safe for work, and that's why I'm not showing that content right now. But this particular performance, I think, is very interesting and very cutting edge, because this is, as far as I know, one of the first public performances with an artist who's incorporating AI into the performance in real time. So Google released a generative music platform called Mix DJ or something like that, and it just produces samples of different sounds. You can put in different sounds you want to hear, and it'll produce those. And so on the screen, you'll see he's got bagpipes, dulcimer, Persian tar, flamenco guitar, djembe, Detroit techno. So he's put these options up for the audience to choose what he's going to sample. So I think this could have been done digitally with a QR code. It would have been interesting to see like people actually voting in real time on these options. But instead, he just sort of informally went out into the crowd, said, "What do you guys want to hear?" And he took those suggestions. Now that leads me to believe that maybe the options were already preset. But there's something that happens later in the performance that makes me believe that maybe that's not the case. So let's take a look. So this is Marc Rebillet creating a song totally improvised using AI loops. So let's check it out.
Djembe. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop these in here, and then I'm gonna use them as samples, and I'm gonna make something with this. So ideally I want it to be simple so that I can use it as an element in like a fuller composition. You understand what I'm saying? It's okay if you don't. I don't. Djembe.
And so that's not a very simple sample to start off with. So we've got the djembe going. And so you can dial up or down the amount you want. So he's putting in the different samples now.
Go ahead, baby.
It seems like it's taking a little bit longer than perhaps he would like. And that's why he keeps dialing it up, trying to bump it up. It's not coming. And see, this is the risk of doing something like this at an event, a live event. But there it comes. And you can kind of see a little bit in his eyes, at least I can, a little bit of panic, like, how am I going to do this? So now he's recording this sample. This is just really fascinating to watch for me.
I'm now muted.
It takes a little bit of time.
DJ, and this is just right in the looper.
It takes a little bit of time for the loop to develop. I won't play the whole thing, but I want you to just kind of see as it develops. By the end of it, the crowd is just going absolutely bananas.
Yes, that's like that.
And so now he's trying to figure out the key of the sample. So he's trying to find the root notes on the keyboard, and it's tricky because the sample's a little bit out of tune. Here you can see on that right top corner, he's listening, and he's really, do I have the right key? He's got it. It's a little out of tune, but it works. And now he's going to start layering on top different sounds, and it just gets really good. And I love the visuals, very retro, fun, kind of Brady Bunch style. So he's got the Persian Tara in there, he's got some djembe in there. Now he starts laying in some hi-hats, building a drums. And this kind of performance, you know, it's nerve-wracking in the audience watching something like this, because you're like, oh my God, what's he doing? Is this going somewhere? And then once it comes to fruition, it's really mind-blowing. And now you can hear that it's starting to build up. And I can tell you from experience that doing anything improvised at a live event is extremely risky. People are very adverse to it. Last episode, I had Chris Turner on the show. He's a comedian rapper who's on the Stephen Colbert Show, and he raps freestyle. And he was explaining how difficult it was to convince them to allow him to actually freestyle on the show, even though it was pre-recorded. And so now he's really getting into it, and we got a killer groove in the making. Now I'm going to just fast forward here a little bit. You can see his sort of unhinged comedic side here. I love this part. This is hilarious. I know, you're all probably just glued to the screen like I am, just watching this. Like, what is going to happen next? You know, it's just so unpredictable. Okay, let's just skip forward here a little bit.
That's nice. Yeah. It is 9:30 in the morning. 9:30, 9:30, 9:30, 9:30, 9:30, 9:30. Too early, too early, too early, too early.
And I think by this point, he's pretty much got the audience wrapped around his pinky. Now, last time you were at a keynote, was there anything like this? Wouldn't this be a good way to start a keynote? And then they bring out the t-shirt cannon and shoot robes out into the audience, and you can see people are just kind of like, the energy. You can hear the crowd, right? It started off very sort of soft, but now people are really losing their stuff. So really, really cool. You definitely have to check out Marc Rebier on YouTube. So kudos to Google for doing that, because you know, that could go many different ways. So I think Mark Rebier killed that, and was a brilliant use of entertainment at an event. So, do with that as you will. If you're looking for something like that, you can call me, or you can just reach out to Mark Rebier yourself, and get him for your next keynote. I think that'll be good for your event. Okay, so now let's move on to our next segment. Okay, so I am very excited about the guest that I have with me today. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I have known Dave Keystone for many, many years because we went to elementary school together. And as we got older, all of us that knew Dave growing up sort of watched in awe as Dave, went on TV, and we could all see his career sort of blossoming as he started to host different television shows. And he is a early content creator. He, went viral on Snapchat, and he also produces his own shows, has a company where he produces special keepsake videos called Keepsake Video, where he basically will record people's stories and put it into a beautiful video format, which I think is a really cool idea. And he has, in more recent years, got into volunteerism and fundraising, and using his skills as a host and entertainer to the fundraising world, and has been raising tremendous amounts of money for organizations doing that. So it's my pleasure to welcome my guest. Please give it up for Dave Keystone. Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you.
So good to see you.
It's a gray day in Toronto, and I actually like gray days.
Do you? I can't stand
I do.
them.
I like. Oh no! Give me a gray, cold, drizzly COVID day 2.5 years ago. Living the dream, because I like being home. I'm a hobby person, so I'm a homebody mostly. So I like when I know everyone else is home.
I can identify with that, but I like being home on a sunny day. I have a pool in the backyard, so I like to take advantage of that.
Fair.
So, Dave, you've been a very busy guy since we last saw each other, and I think I saw you maybe once, like maybe in the 2016 or something around there, at an event conference. You were doing interviews with people, but before that, I hadn't seen you in a very long time, and it's been amazing to kind of from afar see all the different things that you've been doing. So I want to talk a little bit about how you sort of got into the roles that you're in, because you really wear a bunch of different hats. And I feel like many people in the entertainment business do wear different hats, because you need to have different, your fingers in different sort of jars to keep the wheels turning, as it were. But what I remember is everybody saying, "Oh my God, did you hear Keystone is on this new reality show?" And that was called UATV The Loft, right?
Yeah, the Lofters.
The Lofters.
Yeah.
So this was this pre-Big Brother?
Oh yeah, this was in 2000, 2001. Big Brother 1 came out in the United States, and Canada's response was a show called UATV The Lofters, where 8 Canadians are going to live on camera for a year of their life and host MTV-like talk shows from the loft. And then there was a reality show cut about their lives hosting those shows, with I think 4 or 5 new episodes a week. So it was insane. It was ahead of its time. We were streaming live. Nothing like it had existed. And even now, when you watch reality shows, people are on them for a couple months, but this was a full year of our life. And so it was, and I hadn't been in entertainment I just came to it sort of serendipitously, and it was just like personality based. No one knew what reality TV was at the time. So when I sent in a tape of my, of myself, um, you didn't even know what you didn't even know what you were auditioning for. You didn't even know what you were doing. Um, Excuse me if there's a rainstorm and a dog barking. There's
That's
these
okay.
things happening in the back. So if you hear those things, that's what's happening. So yeah, the Lofters was intense, and the Lofters was I hadn't been in entertainment. It was my first time seeing myself on camera. It was my first time seeing myself as part of an entertainment product, and that's really where it all started. But after the Lofters, I didn't work in entertainment or production or media for a long time. But it was what showed me sort of the personality, and you could see yourself. I was watching myself on a show, and saw that like I kind of had that entertainment value, but didn't even. I was 19. I didn't know what. It was a very strange way to get into the business.
And this show,
and
just so everyone understands, is like there's 8 of you, right? 8 people.
Yeah, 8 people live on camera for a year.
In a loft,
Marissa
in a
Cox,
loft downtown, right? And there's
in a loft
cameras.
downtown. Yeah, you were allowed to leave. You were allowed to leave the loft, so it wasn't like you were like in a fishbowl. But whenever you were in the loft, you were on camera. It was a live streaming. We hosted 12 or 16 shows that went on a website, u8tv.com. There was a TV show cut that was aired on Life Network, and at that time there were only 52 channels. It was before digital cable, so it was like on prime time. It was like a really big deal at the time. Jen Hedger's now on TSN. Marissa Cox is the host of Big Brother Canada, and it was, and I'd say it was my start in entertainment, but it wasn't so much because I didn't really do much for a long time after that, and then I only got back into sort of broadcast way later when I matured into knowing what I wanted to do. Something that I kind of takeaway for me was after the Loft, people were like, "Oh, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do?" And it was expected at that time that you'd go and you'd become a Much Music VJ. Like that was just remember, I mean, that was just the thing to do. You'd go on Much Music. You're a VJ. That VJs were like the personality. And I didn't care much about music, and I didn't care much about sports, and I didn't care enough about news and entertainment. And so it took many, many years until I discovered what I cared about and what I'd want to be doing in media, and then produced my own content for that.
Right.
Like based on those thoughts.
I actually have, I want to show you something here. Tell me what you think about this.
Yeah, that's the Loft. That's crazy. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was the Loft. It was down on Richmond Street, 332 Richmond. It became Loft 332 as a nightclub. And this was like when Richmond and Peter and Adelaide were like entertainment district, right? It was club district. You were right down there. There were billboards of your face outside the building. There were screens showing what's going on. And it was like, there's Trey and Sandy. And it was
drama.
Like, it was drama. It was right in the heart of the city. And it was like, you were like a little celebrity, you know, you were like, when you leave the Loft, you walk, there's Dave on the left there. When you walk around, everyone knew who you were and everyone thought they knew your life. That was what was weird about it, is that, on reality shows, I mean, there's a delay, right? Like they shoot something,
yeah,
and they wait for a story to play out. And it could take 3 months, 6 months for when you first argue about something until you resolve a problem in your life. It could take 6 months, and that goes on the air as one episode. And then everyone thinks that that's your life today. Go to family dinner and people are like, why did you do 6 months ago?
Yeah, that's that's really, really wild that you lived through that for 1 year. I don't think there's ever been another show quite like it. And I actually read that one of the reasons that the show was canceled was because of the cost of live streaming at the time.
Oh yeah,
that which is a funny. Now looking back on it, because it's being able to live stream. I mean, we're doing it right now, and it's costing me pennies. So it's funny how the technology has really progressed over the years. But so you did that. You took a break, and then you ended up on you sort of did some self-discovery and figured out what you want to do next, and that's when you got onto YTV's Cooked. Is that correct?
Well, so I took some time. I dabbled in the industry a bit just to see what I wanted to do or not, and then I was always hosting events here and there, and then I went to OCAD and took a degree in integrated media because I just thought it was interesting. And then, no, what actually happened is the funny story about how I got back into entertainment, like 15 years later, was that the morning show Mad Dog, no, not Mad Dog. It was Todd Shapiro was the co-host of on like Q107.9 or something, like one of these morning shows. He was canceled as the co-host, and then they were doing a countrywide search for like the new co-host to be on whatever this show was in the morning in Q107 across Canada. And I was like, why? And I just, a friend of mine was like, you should do this. And so instead of submitting an application to become the new co-host, I just showed up at the station at like 4 a.m. It was a morning radio show. What was it? Not Mad Dog and Billy. It was I forget what that guy's name was. He was like a shock jock in the morning. Anyways, went down, and I was just like, I'm here to be the co-host of the show. You can stop the nationwide search. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And I was like, I'm here. I'm the co-host. Stop searching. They thought it was funny. They put me on the air for 10 minutes. And then the next day I went back because I was like, and I printed a shirt that said like hashtag my first day of work. And I literally the next day, 4:30 in the morning, went back to the radio station and just showed up again. And I was like, I'm telling you, I'm the co-host. I'm here for work. They're like, what are you doing here again?
They call the police for a stalker on site or something?
Dude, and then the producer was like, dude, it was funny yesterday, but it's not funny today. And I actually think that he was trying to become the co-host, so that's why he kind of like wouldn't let me back on the air. And I remember I left and I was so pissed. I was like, these guys are insane. Like, this is such a good segment. You're filling 4 hours of live air in the morning, and some jerk keeps showing up to say he's the co-host. Like, use that. It's the easiest segment you could ever have. And it's like 5 minutes at least. And I was so pissed off that I was like, you know what? YouTube exists. I could just create a camera, get a buddy, and I can go on the street and just talk about whatever I want. I could just go be the streeter guy. And so I thought I made a list of like 20 things I'd want to talk about, and 10 of them had to do with sex. I didn't think Dave on the Street would be any good because no one knew who I was yet, so I created a show called Sex on the Street TV with a buddy of mine. I mean, I produced it and created it, but he was a camera guy. Shout out to Big Ticket Productions, Jesse Cap. And we'd go out on the street, and I shot the show, Sex on the Street TV. It's still online. And then what was amusing is Sex on the Street TV went viral, and it did really well on on Funny or Die, when Funny or Die had its own website. And then a friend of mine went to audition for Cooked on YTV, so a kids show.
Yeah. And
when he was there, he said to the producer, you know, I got a buddy who I think would be perfect for this. Imagine someone goes to an audition and actually pitches their buddy. And he pitched me, they brought me in, and I got the show. And then because I was now on kids television, I had to take Sex on the Street TV offline. Right?
Because that was a very risque show. I remember watching that, and it was pretty shocking because at the time, people weren't really having the types of conversations that you were having, where you would just literally be on the street and ask people like, I'm not going to go into the types of questions because, you know, it's a LinkedIn show, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and it was like, what do you think of some of these things? Because there were things that I saw happening in my dating life that I couldn't understand, or that just were like sort of out of the ordinary to me. But what I did is I made the logo. If you can Google Sex on the Street TV. I made the logo feel very much like kind of kind of cartoony and fun. The background music was very Seinfeldian, because I thought if we just approach these conversations, really important conversations like using condoms or not, if we want to keep it like light for now.
Yeah.
We approach them in kind of in a light way, almost like Sue Johansson, like Sex with Sue.
Yeah.
Then we have these conversations, and I wasn't saying too much about myself on the show, so I was like, I'm just giving people a platform to share their stories, And so it went viral. It was really, to be honest with you, to this day, I think it's one of the best things I ever produced. And then I got on YTV, and then because of YTV, I was thought of as a kids guy. And I had been hosting bar and bat mitzvahs, and I had been working in the summer camp business. And so once I was on Cooked, people really started to think of me as a kids guy, which is kind of amusing because my sense of humor is not clean, let's say. And so, in fact, a few times in my life, which is really comedic to me later, and we can talk about this later, but I was at a camp and I created a show called Kids On, where we were getting dating and relationships advice from kids, which is for adults, right? You're talking to kids about dating and relationships for adults. And then CBC Kids picked it up, and we created an exact replica show, but for kids. So every time I've ever tried to create a program for adults, I end up in the kids space.
That's hilarious. I want to show. Let's take a look at this. Tell me what you think of this.
Yeah.
And now they're ready to put their tasty techniques to the test against the toughest, pickiest, most finicky panel to ever judge a cooking competition.
A little more caramel on the bottom would be nice.
What did I tell you? Join YTV for a cooking show like no other, as grown-up gourmets try to please a panel of picky eaters.
I hate avocado.
And if they don't, they're cooked.
Yeah.
Series premiere Tuesday, May 20th.
What is that? Does that bring back some memories?
Professional chefs cook for kid judges, and if they don't like what you're cooking, they cook you in these giant dunk tank-like cauldrons. What was great about that show is that we shot, so people don't know this, but you kind of block shoot it, so you shoot a couple episodes a day. So we shot like 20 episodes in 18 days. It happened really quickly. In television, people are always like, "Oh, how's the show going?" You're kind of like,
"Yeah, it's done."
Yeah, the show's over for me. It's on the air now, but it's over for me. It's not what I do every day. And so what was great about that show is because when you're working with kids, unions dictate that you have to keep taking breaks every hour or so. You can only shoot 9 to 5. It was a fun show. The crew's happy. It felt like a summer camp set. And so I think it's really one of the better work experiences I've had. A lot of pressure on me. I was losing my mind. I mean, there was so much pressure because the host was really carrying the show. And the scripts were really intense. But it was great because the crew was happy. You can't work long hours. The food was good. Everyone's chill. Cooked was great.
Nice. And so I want to show a clip of your CBC show. But what is it like working with kids in this? I mean, I'm a father. I find children extremely entertaining. And, you go back to who was the original host of Kids Say the Darndest Things? Can't remember. But I know Bill Cosby brought it back even, and kids just say the darndest things, really, and it's entertaining to watch. And so why do you think CBC picked this up?
Well, the series Kids On that's still on YouTube that we did, where we're getting relationships advice from kids, it's shot. My co-producer Nolan Sarner, he's also the director of it. It was shot in such a beautiful way. It's very, and we weren't going for laughs. We were going for real, authentic conversations with kids. The thing I don't love about Kids Say the Darndest Things, and most hosts, when they're talking to kids, even the late night guys, and even the guys right now on TikTok, that people are always sending me like new kid stuff. They're trying to get laughs, and I like that our show was
done.
Oh, sorry, that's too loud. I was going to put that in the background while you talk about it. This is the show.
No. We could watch this for a second because this opening is funny. What this kid says.
Right away on a second date, I ask a girl if I want to get married.
No, right after it.
What do you say to them?
Will you marry me?
Just like that.
Yeah, but you have to show them the ring.
So let's just let it open for a second.
Sure.
Dinner or drinks?
If I'm gonna go on a first date with a girl, do you think I should take her out for dinner or drinks?
Drinks.
Why?
Because I would like someone if they would invite me to drink. I would go drinks. So you're not going so hard with it.
Drinks, because then basically if it's shorter, then there's less room for error.
A dinner.
Right, like, so we're just having these conversations with kids, but authentic conversations, and they happen to be funny, but we're not trying to get the laugh. And I think
Yeah.
that that's what resonated with people about this show, is that it's shot really beautifully, and we weren't trying to get laughs. We were trying to have authentic conversations with kids, and we casted, when we shoot these shows. So this was Kids On, where we self-produced this. We raised some money. We got a production company on board, and then we shot this ourselves, put it online. It went viral, like around the world, like proper viral. It was picked up in every like media outlet you can think of. It went. And then I had, interestingly, at the time, a friend of mine who was a producer from the Lofters, so literally we're fast forwarding 20 years, was the head of CBC Kids. And so I sent it to him. He's like, I love this. I want to do this. And then he stopped working there. Someone else took over, but we kept going with it. And then CBC said, we want to produce this, but we want it to be for kids. So kids talking about kids' issues.
Right.
We talked about, honesty, gift giving, the meaning of life.
I have a sample here. Oh wait, this is not the right one. Hang on a sec. Let me fix that. This is something else. Here we go.
Yeah.
Because whenever I try to draw, I always draw on the floor under the table. I've been doing it since I was 4 years old.
You've been drawing on the floor under the table since you were 4?
Yeah.
At what age do you think you're going to stop drawing under the table?
I want to lie and say 19, but I think it's going to be never.
What does it mean to be normal?
What does it mean to be normal? Ordinary, like everybody else.
Normal, boring, go to the same job, like those cubicles where you just type.
You're like everyone else, look the same, act the same, all have the same name.
So it sounds like you think normal's not a good thing.
Normal is horrible.
I think everybody's different in a way, so I don't think, like, anyone's normal. I think it's fine to be normal. I think
this
could
shoot
be a
was
good
rough.
thing.
And we're in the snow. So
this actually it gives me hope for the future when you speak to children like this, because I think when we were growing up, we didn't have these kind of views, and we weren't like this schooled in sort of like world views, and so it's nice and refreshing to see.
Yeah, we weren't having like just these holistic meaning of life type conversations, and I often get messages from different teachers, to be honest, all over the world, who write me and say that I use your videos in my class to engage the kids in just outside of a traditional educational curriculum, to have these conversations that are outside, kind of the curriculum, if you will. And so that show also did really well for CBC, and we won a Canadian Screen Award, and then we were nominated again. We won almost every award that we applied for that show with that show. But back to working with kids, first that I find that people don't realize, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just do something like this. We auditioned like 200 kids to find a solid 16, a smart kid, a clever kid, a quirky kid, a funny kid, and then like we have to like hit every demo. And then those days are really tough, to be honest with you. So my favorite part of producing those shows is the auditions, because I get 5 minutes with 200 kids without their parents around to just hear their real authentic thoughts, unfiltered. They're like, no one's making them feel like they have to say anything. And you get I always say that, like, you get a real overview of what parents are like, right? You sit down with a kid for 5 minutes and you say, what's the meaning of life? And they start talking about like Trump and like politics. You know what they're talking about in their home.
Yeah.
You talk to you get a real sense of like what parents are like in the world. And during the speech that I made when we got the Canadian Screen Award in 2018 for Best Host, I said that it gives me hope for the future talking to all these kids. But when we're actually on set, it's crazy. Like, we shoot a whole season in 1 or 2 days. And so what it looks like for folks who don't know about production is like We have 2 camera crews, 2 full crews. One crew is set up in one location. Let's say we choose a summer camp. We're in the dining hall. Full crew is there. I interview a kid for 20 minutes. Immediately after, I go change my wardrobe. I walk to the next set, and the second crew is there with a kid, and I walk with the kid to set, and we just start the conversation. By the time that interview's over, I go get changed really quickly, go to the third set. That first crew had moved already to the third set, so it's like this crazy day. And but what's cool about it is sometimes we would get accused of people thinking that we're like scripting this for the kids. We don't at all. In fact, even during the auditions, we use different conversation starters so that the kids have no idea what we're going to talk about on the day of. And what I'll do is I'll walk to set with the kid, just having a conversation. I have an earpiece in. We sit down with the kid. I still keep talking to him. And then the set just goes quiet because the director tells the crew to quiet down, but the kid doesn't notice because they're still in conversation with me. And then the director in my ear, Nolan, says, okay, we're rolling. And then I just start going into the 20 questions, and I just weave them through like we're having a conversation. So by the time that I say to the kid, I go, all right, we're done. They're like, oh, were we even filmed? Like, they don't even, it's a really wild experience because we don't want to, it can't be jarring for the kid. If you call action, they might freeze up. So from the wardrobe makeup trailer, I'm just chatting with them. And then I sit down on set and I just keep chatting with them. And then at the end of the chat, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to walk you back to the,
It's done.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
And it's to make sure we get these authentic conversations.
And so I wanna pivot now because I did bill this as the fundraising episode, and you are just have such a interesting career and have done so many different things. But I know that now you're using a lot of these skills that you've developed to raise money for organizations. So I want to learn a little bit more about how that came to be, and how did that begin? That you started volunteering and raising money and doing auctions and stuff like that.
So I've always been a volunteer. That's just my parents instilled that in me from a young age. So I've been playing music at an old folks home for 20 years. I've been, every winter I do the cold where we're providing meals for low-income folks. I've always been into volunteerism. End of 2019, my dad died. Then my psychiatrist died suddenly, who I'd been seeing twice a week, every week for 12 years. Then a relationship I was in ended suddenly, kind of. Then 2 businesses I worked with, I kind of parted ways with, that were kind of like my career identities. And then COVID. And so I really had to strip down to my core of like I lost a parent, a lover, psychiatrist, 2 career identities in like the span of like 4 to 6 months.
And the world is going crazy with COVID.
And the
wow,
world's
what a
going
time.
crazy. And you're by yourself. Super dark time. So I thought to myself, if I could do anything I want tomorrow, what would I do? If I had all the money, if my dad was alive, my psychiatrist was back, my girlfriend was back, I had tons of money, I had a career, a fulfilling career, all this stuff, what would I want to do with my time if I could just choose to do anything? And I thought I'd probably just want to like volunteer and, help people. And so because I was in such a dark place and I was kind of like grasping at straws to get out of it, I thought, what if I give myself permission to just go become a full-time volunteer for 3 months? Don't take on any new work. Don't let any projects suffer, but just volunteer and do what you want to do. So in the Toronto Wildlife Center, where I started cleaning cages, Sprint Senior Care, where I started driving Meals on Wheels, and Shelter Movers, a charity where we help individuals and families, primarily women and children who are fleeing abuse and gender-based violence. Through doing that, rediscovered a sense of purpose, a sense of self, a new community of like-minded people, and sense of purpose, community, and perspective. Because when you're doing shelter moves, you're going into some real challenging situations, and you really come home and feel like, okay, and even driving Meals on Wheels, when you see how a lot of seniors live, it's really sad stuff. And so from there, I was just volunteering so much. And then these organizations would reach out to me and say, like, who's this guy doing all this volunteering out of nowhere? He's here every day. He's so happy. Everyone loves what he's doing. How else can he help? And so I started helping shelter movers fundraise. and I had met the clients. I'd met so many women and their kids in shelters in Toronto, and I learned so much about it. I thought, I grew up about fundraising. The joke I have now is, you want to raise a fundraiser, just send them to a school with people with money, like Forest Hill High School. Like a big part of my fundraising was who I knew. I went to Forest Hill High School. I didn't grow up with tons of dough, but I went to a high school with people who did. And I thought to myself, whenever in this kind of community of like wealthy folks that I knew, I always felt like I had one ask in my life, whether I have a business idea, like whatever it is, I got this one ask from all these families that I knew who had lots of dough. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to use my one ask to ask for someone else. And I'm going to use my one ask to try to raise money for people in need. And because I had led 241 shelter moves, I knew the cause, I knew the people, I felt the pain, I knew the need. I learned a lot about the organization. And so I was well suited to go sit with wealthy people and say, hey, we need some money. And the interest in, can I just go on a little rant about fundraising? Because
yeah, please.
Yeah, is one thing. So a few things I learned is that a lot of people are shy to ask people for money who have money. Rich people are all asking each other for money. Wealthy people are all fundraising for their own charities, their own causes. So when you come to ask them for money, they're not upset at you. They don't think you're like asking for a handout. They're like, yeah, they ask for money too. You have to have a good case for giving. You have to feel it. You have to be a good salesperson. You have to understand the organization you're raising money from. But you don't have to be shy to ask people for money, because they're all asking people for money too. So that's the first takeaway. And the second is that, like, if you don't go ask people for money, like, I sat outside the first person's house, the first wealthy person. I was sitting in my car and I was like, I'm going to go in and ask them for so much money. I'm so nervous. Like, I was scared, literally scared, trembling. And I thought to myself, the clients that I'm going to ask, the people who we're helping, that I'm going to ask for money for, can't do this themselves. They don't have the privilege to be able to get in the room with these wealthy people. And so I'm going to go do this for them. And when I took myself out of the equation, it was kind of like, if these people say no, who cares? At least I tried for these other folks who can't ask for themselves. And I learned really quickly that wealthy people are all asking each other for money. Turns out that there is a bit of a secret society of like wealthy folks who are all chairs and co-chairs of these major events. They're selling tables to each other, and they're basically just handing money back and forth to each other. And
let's be honest, there's benefit to them to give money to charity.
Oh, there are folks
financial benefit.
Yeah, so some people give because there's tax benefits. They have to give out some money if they have like family foundations, and some companies have like their CS, their corporate social responsibility for the year. But and socially it looks good for someone to be producing some event and saying that it feels very good to put your name on some event, and they're the co-chair of something, and they're standing behind a charity, and they seem really philanthropic, and they are. But people do it for all different reasons. What I found interesting too is there are very few people who really do the work. There are a lot of people who will give money, but there are very few people who will put their name on an event or on a fundraising campaign and do the work and call their friends and give a charity basically their Rolodex. Those are the people you're trying to find. So in the fundraising world, just to circle back a bit, I don't know if anyone ever wants to reach out to me to talk about fundraising. I'm at Dave Keystone on all social media, but I know about social fundraising and I know about corporate fundraising. I don't know a lot about, I but I don't apply for grants. Even in media, in television, dude, I want to produce some series. I'm going to go try to find a rich person who cares about what I care about and get them to just cut a check.
Yeah.
Writing grants, I'll lose my mind. Even, so I became really good at it because I had a history, 20 years in the private events business. So I could help, shelter movers produce a couple of big events. And I reached out to some folks who were like childhood friends who some of them I hadn't spoken to in a very long time. And some people made really, really big gifts. And I didn't expect it. another thing about fundraising that's interesting is that you'll work really hard to get $5,000 out of someone, but if you can find a super wealthy person who's in control of their own finances and can just write a check, they might cut you a check like, Patrick DeVigi. I went to high school with him. He became the founder and CEO of GFL, Green for Life. Called him up. It was like a 14-minute conversation, and he committed $2.5 million over 5 years to shelter movers. It was 14 minutes. Then I went to his office afterwards, and it was a 22-minute meeting. Meanwhile, I got people whose family foundations, they have a board, they have to get together, they have to decide on $5,000 gift. You're constantly following up. So my brother-in-law once told me a great thing about business in general is you're in the business of collecting no's. Just get to those no's so that you can get to your yeses faster. Like, so many people are going to say no, and it's totally okay. And there's no hard feelings. And so that's the fundraising part of my life. And then the auctioneering, which is how I really can help a lot of different charities now, is there's a charity called Access Education Guatemala Children's Fund. They're a friend of mine. They build schools in Guatemala. It's unbelievable what they do. And for years, I hosted their event, and then they wanted to do a live auction. And I just sort of started live auctioneering there. And because I was funny, because I talk fast, raised a lot of money, and then went on to do it for a few other charities. And the past 3 ones that I did, we raised $150,000 for High Lifeline, auctioning off this Andrea Bocelli guitar. I think we raised like $160,000 in the room for Modern Miracles Foundation. I raised $250,000 at the Shelter Movers event on stage. Just going for it. And I think that my auctioneering style it's funny, keeps people engaged, and I care, and they know I care, and they can see that I care about the cause.
I want to play a clip for people, because I think when you think auctioneer, a lot of the time, this is kind of what you're thinking. Let me put the volume up here. Now that's, this works if you're selling cattle, right? But when you're funding a need or a cause, it's a totally different story, right? And I think there's still auctions are still a big fundraising avenue for organizations. And I don't think there is like an agency that just represents auctioneers for events, right? You have traditional auctioneers, sold, right? That type of Sotheby's auction where you're going somewhere to bid on a piece of something that you know exactly what it is, and you're going there specifically to auction to bid on it. Whereas an event, it's a totally different story, because we're talking about a specific cause, and the items people are bidding on, they may not know what the hell they are even in advance. So it's getting people to buy in on the spot. So I'm wondering, as someone who's not like a formally trained auctioneer, what is your sort of strategy going into it? In fact, actually, let's look at this clip, because you mentioned the Andrea Bocelli thing, and I think that's an interesting case. And so give a little background on this particular situation, because I know it's a unique scenario where this is not exactly like a full-on live auction. It's a performance, and they ask you to auction one item afterwards, right? So give us the background.
Yeah. You had. I get called like a week before. A friend of mine who knew that I do this works with High Lifeline. They say they want to auction off a guitar signed by Andrea Bocelli. He's going to perform, and then he's going to sign the guitar. Or how is he going to sign the guitar? We'll figure it out. It's like $100 guitar, so the guitar is not the sell. And we want you to auction it off, and we think we're going to get like $20,000 to $30,000 for it. And I'm like, Andrea Bocelli, like, do people really care enough? Like $30,000 for an autographed Bocelli guitar? Like, will people really care?
And he's not really known as a guitarist, really.
Is he? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, and who even cares about him, and how much blah, 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 right? And then I'm supposed to go on stage. How is someone going to introduce me? How are we going to set this up that we're doing this? He just performed. Am I just going to walk on stage, introduce myself? And they're like, yeah, just go on stage during the standing ovation. I'm like, what? Just go on stage and just start yelling like this guy who no one knows who I am, haven't been set up that we're even doing this. No one knows we're doing this. Just go on stage and go for it. So I knew that I had to come up with some kind of storyline. So I did. Sneakily, I literally snuck backstage to meet Andrea Bocelli, shook his hand for 1 second. He didn't say much to me. He just goes, nice to meet you, and walks away. Literally, like, it was it. It was like 1 second. And so I came up with this kind of like idea that I met with him. We hung out. He came up with this idea that we're going to auction off this guitar. And then midway through, and then his wife came up with the idea that midway through, if we get to a certain level, we'll be, will you go higher if he signs it? And then what was funny too is that the guitar actually didn't work right when he went to play. The chord didn't work. It was crazy, and we were all like, "Oh my god!" Like if he's not able to play it, this whole thing like doesn't even work. But then it worked. And I go on stage. There's a big room, 1,000 people. You know, like who even knows what's about to happen? So the energy that I have that you're going to see in this video, I had to like win this room. You had to come on so strong. And so I came on real strong, and we ended up raising $150,000. The most unbelievable thing I ever seen. It was unbelievable.
So this clip I have where I'm starting from the point where you've already got to $60,000, right? So you're already like tripled.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. When you're auctioning off something that's valued that could get to 100,000, they're rare. These types of things, they don't come up too often, or at least in the Toronto scene. A few events will auction something off that can get that high. But when you pass $50,000, usually there's only like 1 or 2 folks in the room still bidding up after that. People drop off. This event, we had people all over the room coming in at 60, 70, 80,000. Couldn't believe it. When I got up to 100,000, there were still a few people in. And so it lets you know like about the pockets of the folks High Lifeline has access to. But it was just, I think the energy was great. It was just, I don't think anyone could have done what I did that night, to be honest with you. It was unbelievable.
Let's watch.
55, thank
Let's
you.
watch
Someone
it.
do 60. Someone do 60,000. 60. Someone do 65,000. Someone give me 65,000. Will someone just be that person who just does like 100,000?
Now, see, that's a risky move, I find, like, because you're going, that's a huge jump, right? You could have ended the auction right there, because if you did not get a bid for 100,000, you could have got 70 potentially, right?
Right. So here's the thing. At that point, if there are 5 or 6 hands going up in the room at $60,000, someone who can cut a check for $60,000 can be pressured to cut a check for $100.
Will someone just do that? Hold on a second. I got an idea. I'm full of ideas tonight, man. I didn't put this tuxedo on for no reason.
And what I like about this is like it feels almost like you're watching a comedian, the way you're working the stage, which is like people. I feel like watching comedians is so much more popular now with like TikTok and all that stuff, and that whole sort of vibe. It just doesn't feel like an auction.
For $100,000, but then and if someone gets, we'll go even further for $100,000. Andrea Bocelli, come here. The greatest dude. I'm in my shit. Did someone do it? Oh my gosh! What's your name and are you single? Thank you so much. Wow! Wow!
Can you believe it?
Literally,
Dude,
wow!
I'm tripping out at the time.
I believe it.
Literally yesterday, I'm in the shower going like, Conte partiro. I'm like, I'm a jerk. I can't believe that this has all come together. Will someone, but you're so beautiful, you're so sweet, I get it, but we're here to raise some money. So like, who cares? You know what I mean? So can we do 110?
Right?
Would someone do
When you go there,
$110,000 to make her go up to 136? Will someone
I'll
just
pause it. Go ahead.
You get $100,000, I think a lot of people would have stopped there.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is, so that's where I think people, a pro would have stopped. The way I see it is, I'm paid to, I'm coming there to raise as much money as possible. So I'm looking down, I'm looking at the event producer or whoever it is, like whoever's in charge of the event, whoever the co-chair is, or the event producer, they're who I'm looking at. And if they're not stopping me, I'm not stopping. Who am I to stop this whole thing? And so it's like, yeah. And what's funny too is what I tell people often also about live auctioneering is like $100,000 is a lot of money to everybody. So when I react and I'm losing my mind, even the billionaires in the room know that $100,000 for a guitar that was just signed, that's not even signed yet by this guy, everyone understands how much money that is. So it's funny to everybody in the room. And it's funny that someone can just put their hand up and do that. So you kind of have room to like play with that a bit.
Yeah.
Where I'm not making people feel embarrassed that they just gave that much money. It's so funny that they just gave that much money. It's crazy. And it's so great. And it's going to help this charity and this cause. It's real money that's going to help real people.
Let's watch the ascent to 150.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! 110. Will someone go to $136,000? Would you do 136?
So you went from 110 to 136 now.
Do you know what I mean?
Why not?
Do you know?
Can you rewind that a bit?
Yeah, go back a little bit.
$136,000. Would you actually do that? That's like a big deal.
Let's see.
Do 100, you can probably do 136.
Here?
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I say to her, if you could do 100, you could probably do 136.
Would you do $136,000? Would you actually do that? That's like a big deal. And I don't mean to put pressure on in the shadows. She's there in the shadows. I don't mean to put pressure, but you're on the fence. Pardon? Oh my gosh. Dude, dinner with Andrea and Veronica. No, that's it. For 200,000, you'll go for dinner with them? Really? No, we're not gonna go to dinner. You got Scotia Bank. He's got to do Scotia tomorrow. He's doing Scotia. Do you know what I'm doing tomorrow? I got a foster dog at home. I'm going to be trying to get this hair off of it. It's unbelievable. $136,000. Do you want to close it at that? Even if I can go 150? Will someone do 150? I'm that guy. I'm not here for no reason. I am that guy who will just give the room one more second. One more second. Would someone do $150,000? Oh, he hasn't signed it yet. Hold on a second.
So,
hold on a second.
Here's the other thing. The other thing I would say to people is, you got to sit in the pain. I joke with people in the pre-meetings, and I said this yesterday because I'm hosting an auction on Thursday. I say to people like, when I say to the room, will someone do $150,000 and no one's put their hand up yet, it's very uncomfortable for the room.
Yeah.
It's really uncomfortable because they might feel embarrassed. They might feel, no one knows why, but there's a discomfort. And I tell people, I'm like, I'm getting paid to sit in that discomfort. Let me sit in it. I'm the one who's taking the real pain of the room. Like, it's pain. It literally is painful. And so, but if you let a room sit for like 20 more seconds, the funny thing about that, the reason I jumped from 100,000 to 110, when someone comes in for $100,000 and then someone else comes in for 110, one of those two people can go 136 for sure. And the reason I did 136 was because it was a Jewish event for the most part. 6 is double chai, Jewish. 18 is chai, double chai is 36. It made sense. It was the 18th anniversary of Chai Lifeline. When I got to 150, I think if he had given me Yummy, the guy, and Botelli wanted to go, and I understood why they want to just end it. We just raised 7 times more than we thought we would. But I know in my heart, if they had given us 20 more seconds, 20 seconds, we could have raised $30,000 more. Could have gone from 150 to 180, called it a day at 180. The other thing for folks to know, though, is that the people in the room who are giving money at that level are people who are going to give to Chai Lifeline, and they'll probably chop that up over like maybe a year or two. So when you're doing a live auction and you're asking for a ton of money like that, the charity and the giver, they're not just going to cut a check for $100,000 on the spot. The charity is going to work out a giving plan for that money to come to the charity. That's something also really important for people to realize. The guy who ended up buying it for $150,000, he's a huge supporter of that charity already. Yeah. And he probably had it in his mind that he was going to give them a lot of money. And he's just like, I'm going to do it this way. You know? That being said, the other day at a Shelter Movers one, I said to, I was asking for $50,000 during the Fund a Need. It's always nice to do a Fund a Need where there's like, how many families will you help? For $50,000, you'll help 50 families, for whatever charity. And if you do that and then you work down $25,000 will help 25 families. But when you start at that 50 and you just go big or go home, man, I let a room the other day sit in the pain. They were so uncomfortable. And I was like, no problem if you can't. But like, maybe someone here will. Will someone do that? I feel like someone will. Man, we sat for like 37 seconds, which is a long time of silence, and someone just popped their hand in the air. And that person, it was Joanna Griffiths. She's the owner of Nick's Clothing. And like, that's probably her deciding in the moment to start a corporate relationship with the charity that she was supporting. And she's just going to take this, I'll do it now. I'm interested in a charity. I'm here. I'm just going to do it like that, So there's any number of reasons that people will give in that moment. And it's not always just like they're just cutting a check for a thing. They're really thinking about building a relationship with a charity.
But they may have come to that event not expecting to drop $100,000, and it's your job to spontaneously make them feel like, you know what, now is the time to do it, right?
Yeah, and if anyone's ever going to go out and try to do this kind of work, a couple tips I would give is that you want the room to be a little bit lighter because people want to see each other participate in the live auction. You want to make sure you have spotters around the room. I think you want to work the stage. But what I do when I go up and do this, so I've 25, almost 30 years of experience public speaking. But what I like to try to do is, it's this, together we're all going to try to do this thing. I say to people when I start my live auctions, I always say, for those of you who aren't going to participate, all you have to do to support what we're doing is just sit patiently with us. Like, your job is to just be patient and don't get bothered by my voice and don't get bothered if this drags on a bit. That's literally all you have to do to participate in this whole thing, is just be patient. And we're going to raise a ton of money right now. And so I think that when you kind of set it up that, like, we're all here together, we're going to try to do this, and if we don't do it, it's okay. It's okay. No harm, no foul. Let's just try. I don't know how the hell I became a live auctioneer. And I just recently became a marriage officiant. Literally. Became an officiant. So anyone needs to get married, because let me just do this quick pitch, is that I was on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And two of my siblings, my brother's gay and one of my siblings is trans. So the queer community, the LGBTQ2+I community, like, is very important to me. It's a real big part of my identity, is people being accepted as they are. It's very important to me in life. And so I was lying there and I was thinking, how could I help that cause of people being accepted as they are? And I thought I could probably, like, what if I became an officiant and just like help people get married who, like, their church or their temple or their synagogue or wherever won't marry them. And so I became a marriage officiant, and I'll just marry anybody. You want to get married, you love each other, call me up. I'll get you married up.
Well, you may or may not know, I spent over a decade as a wedding planner, planning many, 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 many weddings. And I wish I had known you then, because I would have filled your calendar with bookings, because we did all kinds of weddings. And I think you would make a fantastic officiant with your ability to, tell stories and comedy and thinking quick on your feet. You definitely have to be able to, I've definitely seen, wedding ceremonies, unexpected things happen. So being quick on your feet, I'm sure you'll do great. And I've got tons of people in my network who are in the wedding business. So book Dave to officiate your weddings and auction your auction.
Yeah. And I have a heart. I care very much. It's not just about comedy. It's not about comedy. For me, all this stuff is whatever you want it to be, especially in the wedding officiating. Whatever you want it to be, sentimental, meaningful, loving, heartfelt, no problem. In the live auctioneering, I'm like, I'll come on real strong, or I'll be soft, this, that. Like, I can adapt to the room and to the needs of any client. And one thing I want to tap back into, because I really care about fundraising and helping charities, I want to say two things, if you don't mind.
No.
One, certainly if you live in Toronto, volunteertoronto.ca is an excellent resource for volunteering. I'm a very big advocate of volunteerism. It does not take much. You volunteer 1 hour a month for a charity, that's a big deal. Volunteering fills your life, fills your heart. It's so wonderful. And so I really think that not enough people volunteer. And I think a lot of people have kids and they think of raising their family as like their thing they're doing for the world. It's like, nah, you decide to have those kids, that's actually your responsibility because you did that. Go help people who didn't ask for your help, who you don't need to help. It will make you feel very, very good. So I'm a huge advocate of volunteerism. And the second is, and if anyone is looking to volunteer somewhere and you have a cause, like something you care about, I'll help you. I know all the places. The second thing is about fundraising is it's not necessarily about who you know who might have some dough. Everyone has one rich person or one company or one whatever. It's about not being shy to just say, I'd love to be able to present this person with charity. Charity will likely have a deck. You send it to them. And it's not about asking them for money. It's just, I just want to, do you mind shooting them an email? There's this charity I really care about, blah, blah. Do you mind just sending them an email with this deck and see if they'd be interested to be introduced to me? It's all soft. We're not going to ask for money. Just want to introduce them. And my brother-in-law is the vice president of Kids Help Phone. And he always talked about, like, you're offering these people an opportunity to give. People who have money to give, want to give, and you're just introducing them to a new place to do that. And if they say, I'm not interested, fine. But they might say, I'll give you $5,000. Sure. So, like, just fundraising, people always think about it as like asking for handouts. It's not.
You're getting all the love and the likes and the thumbs up for that. Nice. So it's volunteer.ca. Was that what it was?
It's just one resource online, but if you're in Toronto, I find that volunteertoronto.ca is an excellent resource. Yeah, and if you care about seniors, I know that Sprint Senior Care right now needs volunteers. They have Meals on Wheels programs. They have, you can do music. You can hang out with seniors. Our senior population needs help, and
it's growing exponentially over the next few years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sure. And so I'm always happy to talk to people about any of these things, about fundraising, media, entertainment.
Awesome. Well,
and I'll say one last.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll say one last thing because I can always say one last thing. But another
Please
thing
do.
is, just like when I put out online something a tip that I like to give people. It's like the Snapchatting stuff. I went viral in Snapchat way back when. I ended up traveling the world, Snapchatting my experiences for an airline. There was this worldwide competition. Whenever there's a worldwide competition and 10,000 people apply, somehow I always win. But whatever you do, if you're in media, if you're in events, if you're in fundraising, whatever it is you want to do, just start putting out in your social media that that's what you do. And people will start to think of you as that person. When I put out Sex on the Street TV, people started to think of me as a host, and then my boss went to the audition, and then when I start putting out online that I'm fundraising, helping people fundraise, people start reaching out and saying, hey, how can you help me? How can you this? How can you that? If you're just starting out in any of these areas or looking for whatever, don't be shy. No one will just identify you as that. People are always shy to just like, hey, I'm doing this now. So just float it out. People will see it. And the more you sort of float it all out there, the more people will start to reach out to you and think about you for this and that. And it'll all just, in social media, you can really create whatever you want. So just start putting out that you do these things and people will start to reach out to you and think of you as that person.
I think that's great advice. And that's exactly what I'm doing with this show, putting it out there to the world that, I know a thing or two about entertainment, events, technology, and bridging the gap between those things. And this was really, really such a great episode. And by the way, we have a comment on Instagram from Bridget Fiddle, who says, that's why Uncle Dave is number one.
Bridget.
A lot of people don't know.
Dude, Bridget Fiddle got reached out to host something. She plays the violin. She has no business hosting something, but she's got great personality.
Yeah.
So she does a business hosting something. And so she called me and we talked about it. And I was like, dude, just go do it. Just go try. Just go whatever. And so, I don't know if she did or not, but I think she did. But it's like, yeah, she's got great personality. And so someone reached out to her for that. I love that. And yeah, they call me Uncle Dave because I have nieces and nephews. And so a lot of folks know me as Uncle.
Yes. If you follow Dave on Facebook, you'll see his stories are often referring to himself as Uncle Dave. So I like to call you Uncle Dave too, Uncle Dave.
I'm everybody's uncle. The joke I have is if I have kids, I want them to call me Uncle Dave.
Well, Dave, I've kept you over time, but it's been such a good conversation, and it's been so nice to catch up with you and to discuss all the, amazing things that you've been doing over the years. And I know that I've pitched you to some clients as well, and I hope to continue to do that so we get the chance to work together, because I really do. I'm a fan of yours, and I believe in your unique approach to raising money and doing auctions. So kudos to you, and great to catch up. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. How do people find you if they want to book you or chat with you?
Yeah, I'm at Dave Keystone on all social media, Keystone, at Dave Keystone on all social media. And you can email me, dave@davekeystone.com. I'm here for any chats, any ideas, whatever you need. I like realizing ideas, helping people along their way, and I clearly realize my own ideas. I'm going to be a marriage officiant. Done. Let's be a marriage officiant. Let's just do these things. I think it's really wonderful when people just try to create and kind of realize their true selves and what so I it.
That's a perfect way to wrap. So thank you so much, Dave. I look forward to the next time I get to see you in person, hopefully, and give you a big hug. It's been many years, and I wish you continued success, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Absolutely. So that brings to conclusion another episode of That's Entertaining. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, always appreciate it if you like, subscribe, share, ding the bell if you're watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube. And we will be back again soon for the next episode. So you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all the platforms. And this is Arthur K. signing out. Take care.